War. Sometimes it's needed, isn't it? One government doesn't like what the other is doing, so they then force them to fall into line. And we all know about the mantra that everybody says war is for profit. But just who are the ones that profit from war? And how much exactly is being made? And do they really care about the people that suffer as a result of them profits? Some countries are being ravaged by war. People are losing their homes and their lives. And who is going to now rebuild these derelict countries, destroyed by disagreements and rebuilt through greed? Greed for the green stuff. Well, the company at the top of the money pit, Lockheed Martin. Their arms sales in 2010 amounted to $35 billion. Their total sales in 2010 was $45 billion, and their arms sales as percentage of total sales 78%, and their total profit $2.93 billion. Lockheed Martin is the largest arms producing and military services company in the world, with nearly $3 billion more in arms sales than second place BAE Systems, and I might add Lockheed also produced the Trident missiles. But here is that company in second place, BAE Systems. Their arms sales in 2010 amounted to $32 billion, and their total sales in 2010 $34 billion. So their arms sales as percentage of total sales 95%, and their total profit $1.67 billion. BAE Systems is an aerospace and defence contractor based in the UK, and in 2010 95% of its revenue came from arms sales, 32 billion in all. Boeing makes some good planes as well, don't they? No doubt you've been on one. Well, you may or may not be pleased they are doing quite well, certainly in the arms market. And Boeing arms sales 2010 $31 billion. And their total sales in 2010 amounted to $64 billion. But their arms sales as a percentage of total sales, 49%. But their total profit was over $3 billion. They are three of the big players in selling arms to destroy foreign lands. But what happened to the profit of these companies and others during the Syrian war? Well, let's take a look at hand-to-hand combat weapons. The cost of an AK-47 nearly doubled from $1,200 to $2,100 since the Syrian uprising began. The armed opposition says weapons are necessary to hasten the fall of Assad's regime. Ahmed, a Syrian activist living in North Lebanon, was reported as saying, "We are pushing for weapons, but no one is listening. Even with limited resources, we are making painful attacks. Imagine what we could do if we had the right weapons." But it's supply and demand, isn't it? That's what supermarkets do. If a product is selling well, they push the price up in the hope that their profits will rise. Many companies thrive off conflict, whether supplying military hardware to armed forces or running mercenary armies on behalf of combatant states. Others fuel conflict through their operations in war zones, such as oil companies in volatile countries like Colombia and Iraq, or through their continued trade in goods such as blood diamonds. Others profit from financing the actual war effort. But the chief executive of Lockheed Martin has even said on record that a lot of volatility, a lot of instability, and a lot of things are happening in both the Middle East and the Asia Pacific region, which means both are growth areas for the company. But what about the people that are dying as a result of them profits? The people that are seeking refuge in other countries, but then are subjected to vilification by us here in the UK. Lockheed Martin also heads up a list done by Stockholm International Peace Research, or SIPRI. They are on the list of the top 100 arms and military services company, with as I said, $35 billion worth of arms sales in 2010. Again, I repeat, followed by Britain's BAE Systems. How much has the UK government alone spent on warfare activities? £34 billion total has been dominated by Operation Herrick, Afghanistan since 2001 at $20.6 billion, and Operation Telic, Iraq in 02 and 09, which cost £9.6 billion. But details that have been proven in a book, Wars in Peace, British Military Operations since 1991, published by the Royal United Services Institute, which has worked out the total sum of the £34 billion. But it is also interesting, and it too is detailed in the book, is about Operation Driver, in which the UK deployed ground troops in Kuwait as a precaution in 94-95 during the conflict the country was having with Iran. Because the UK was taking part as a member of an international consortium, it took some of the pooled funding for the operation. So much of it, in fact, that the military made a whopping £3.3 billion profit in 2012 and 2013. Where did them profits go? The government in 2012 were prepared to allow 2 controversial inquiries to run for up to another 3 years, with the total cost expected to exceed £100 million. But despite years of investigation, the 2 inquiries, plus a third that has already concluded, have yet to lead to a single British soldier being convicted of any crime. But during the onset of this investigation, G4S, yes, we've all heard of them, the company whose failures led to thousands of troops being drafted into the Olympic security effort, were poised to take up the multi-million pound contract for the investigation of soldiers' activities in Iraq. But why would they be given this contract after messing up so famously on the Olympics? Well, Invesco are major shareholders with G4S. So Martin Arbib has been an executive in Invesco since 1996 and a non-executive director since 2008. During this time, he has donated, and here it comes, more than £410,000 to the Tory party. Other major shareholders of G4S include Legal & General, of which Lib Dem MP Robert Smith has registrable shareholdings. Lord Taverne of the Liberal Democrats has also shareholdings in the G4S. So both parties are, or were at the time of the coalition government, linked to the monster corporation. There is money to be made from all angles by everyone when it comes to war, and it appears that the killing of millions of innocent people bear no shame as long as profit is made. But 1 year on, 2013, the government were still at it and was accused of laxity in its arms controls after it emerged that officials authorised the export to Syria of 2 chemicals capable of being used to make a nerve agent such as sarin for a year earlier. Vince Cable, lo and behold, was asked by MPs to explain why a British company was granted an export licence for the dual-use substances for 6 months in 2012 while Syria's civil war was raging and concern was rife that the regime could use chemical weapons on its own people. The disclosure of the licences for potassium fluoride and sodium fluoride, which can be used as precursor chemicals in the manufacture of nerve gas, came as the US Secretary of State John Kerry said the United States had evidence that the sarin gas was used in that same year in Damascus. The Department for Business, Innovation and Skills had said that although the licences were granted to an unnamed UK chemical company in January 2012, the substances were not actually sent to Syria before the permits were eventually revoked in response to tightened European Union sanctions. Again, the government and companies that may be involved with them will do anything to make a profit. The fact that the company remains unnamed should raise some questions about who they are and who, if anyone, at government level may be involved with the company. But what about the rebuilding of Syria? Many reports indicate that it will be largely funded by Lebanese banks. So far, the war in Syria has cost the economy £60 billion. Reports also say that the rebuilding of Syria could be well in the region of £1 trillion. But one company, a British company, could raise concerns over the inclusion of their involvement. Ayman Asfari, 57, the chief executive of a London-based oil services group, PROFITEERS. But what do we know about Mr. Asfari? The son of a diplomat, Mr. Asfari was raised mostly outside Syria. Educated in the US, he started working as an engineer for a contract in Oman after graduating. But also, there was a Syrian arrest warrant for him in 2013 over claims that he funded opponents of the Assad regime for supporting, so-called terrorists. But if you look a bit closer, you might be interested to find the Syria's Foreign Office earlier this year had launched an investigation into the company run by Ayman Asfari, who is, believe it or not, a major conservative donor, who is also one of the Prime Minister's business ambassadors. PROFITEERS, which provides services to the oil and gas industry, is being investigated by the SFO over suspected bribery, corruption and money laundering. Its chief executive Ayman Asfari and his wife have given the Tories more than £700,000 since 2009, with the party receiving £40,000 just last December. The Syrian-born businessman had been questioned under caution by the SFO, along with a number of members of PROFITEERS' senior management team. So, still the money grabbing goes on, still the deceit goes on, and if you don't make money to the hierarchy, you're onto a winner no matter what you do. Does our government go to war for profit? Is terrorism a byproduct of that, rather than going to war to alleviate it? Do we go to war to escalate the problem in a direct move to further the war, then further the profit?
Attack on the Twin Towers, that was well before the Iraq war. So there's no correlation here between foreign policy and this appalling act of terrorism. And that's where Jeremy Corbyn has gone wrong.
Isn't it possible that things like the Iraq war did not create the problem of murderous Islamic fundamentalists, but the war has unquestionably sharpened the resentments felt by such people in this country and given them a new pretext?
Well, I don't think you should allow pretexts for people who blow up innocent children.
Because those are actually the words of Boris Johnson, the Foreign Secretary.
Well, they're not entitled to excuses. This was an act of murder, and of callous murder at that, taking the lives of innocent civilians.
What I just put to you was not Jeremy Corbyn, it was Boris Johnson.
Well, what were the words you were quoting?
The Iraq war did not create the problem of murderous Islamic fundamentalists, though the war has unquestionably sharpened the resentments felt by such people in this country and given them a new pretext. He goes on to say the Iraq war did not introduce the poison into our bloodstream, but yes, the war did help to potentiate that poison. That's exactly the same as what Jeremy Corbyn is saying now.
No, I think it's more is what he's saying that of what I've said. He said you can't use attacks like this to explain away terrorism.
Actually, on the contrary, he said it is difficult to deny that they have a point, the Told You So Brigade.
Well, I don't agree with that.
So who knows what goes on behind closed doors, but whilst there is profit to be made by the people in power and their cronies, the wars will continue, as will the demolition of the countries taking part. And when the noise falls and the bombs stop falling, only then you will see the next round of entities moving in to pick up what's left of the green stuff. With malice towards none, with charity towards all, let's bind up the nation's wounds.